another episode of Leaders Lead. I have Jimi Letchford here today. I am jazzed. If you have never experienced a true walkabout with weights on your back or like the march, like, there's all sorts of different things that military folk have done with carrying the load, right? Like it's unbelievable. Jimi is here today to talk about how leaders carry the load. But not only did they carry the load, it's called rucking. Jimi, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Zach. I appreciate you reaching out to me, having me on. I'm excited to be here. Talk to you about whatever you want to talk to. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
man.
great.
It's an honor and it's a privilege. Hey, for those of you who don't know who Jimi Letchford is, let's talk about it. Give us a little background story of who you are. Maybe the nickel tour of who you are, a little bit of your background, and what excites you.
Right on. Well, hey, I'm not going to go back too far, but I was a college wrestler. I went to the Naval Academy in Annapolis. I got the privilege to go there. I always knew I wanted to serve when I was a young buck, and so targeted the academy and got the dream come true kind of thing. So I got to wrestle there. I was a junior when the towers hit, the Twin Towers, 9/11, and things kind of changed quickly for the entire world, right? But also for academy kids. We went from, just being officers and getting to travel the world and do really cool things with really cool people for really good reasons. And when I graduated in 2003, went right to the Marine Corps, infantry officer, served 3 years there, or 3 years at 1-1, and then another 2 years at infantry training battalion. Went to Iraq a couple times. Found CrossFit during that time, and got the privilege to meet the founder, and him and I stayed in touch. When 2008, when I got out of the active duty side, got the opportunity to work for CrossFit, do all kinds of fun things there. And in fact, in 2019, I went back into the reserves because I missed the Corps and serving with the Marines so much. So we now work for GORUCK. I'm the president over there, and what a fantastic company. I'm like, yeah, really honored to be working with the people I work with right now. Family, I have a beautiful wife of over 20 years, 5 kiddos, live in the mountains. I mean, we're just really blessed, Zach.
That's awesome. So, what do you like to do for fun?
I like to get outside and do shit. It's the truth, skiing, hunting, fishing, rucking, getting out on the trails, putting weight on my back, exercise, being with my family, just getting out and doing the things, and try to stay healthy through how we eat and how we exercise so that I have the energy and the ability to get out and do those things.
That's awesome. So you said you were a wrestler,
That's
and I gotta ask. So, who's your favorite wrestler?
Wow, that's a fantastic question. I mean, we're talking like collegiate wrestling, right?
Yeah, like collegiate, like not none of this like WWE or F or WC. Like I have a favorite there, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's really hard. I mean, like you look at the fathers of wrestling, right? And Dan Gable being one of those, right? And amazing person, amazing coach. I've had some influences on my life and people, names that people wouldn't really know, and others that are coaches that have are accomplished themselves, like Jeff Buxton, for
oh,
example, who was my coach up at Blair. That's a lot of wrestlers would know, but wouldn't know him for necessarily his own accolades. He's just had an amazing impact on people. So, you know, the wrestling community is a special one. It's
mm-hmm.
small. It's very impactful. They're having an enormous impact on a lot of youth today, both male and female. Right? I have 4 daughters, 2 of which are old enough to wrestle, and 2 of which wrestle. And so it's something that personally, it makes me who I am, and it's a passion of mine. So, I'm not sure if I answered your question directly, but it's hard. I guess my answer would be that's a really hard one. I don't know if I could say that I have one.
So, in the wrestling sphere, I'll just tell you a quick story before we get going. Dan Gable, I met him when I was in middle school. So I'm an Iowa native,
Yeah.
and I live in Minnesota now. I met Dan Gable, right? Like, I heard his story when I was in middle school. Super motivational. And then I went to school at Iowa State,
Yeah.
and Cale
That's where
Sanders,
he went.
man.
So, okay, that's funny because, well, Dan Gable won his national title at Iowa State. And so he made his legend, or he started his legend there. And I live in Utah, and Cale Sanderson, my daughters wrestle where Cale wrestled, and his brothers down here. And Cale wrestled while I was wrestling. And him and I, like, we never actually crossed paths on the mat, but I was wrestling his weight class the years that, 184. And yeah, he steamrolled 159 wins in college.
Yeah, he's a
No,
stud. Like,
he's an amazing person.
yeah, he's a great dude. When I was in college at Iowa State, I had a part-time job at an outdoor store, and he came in and he wrote a check for something, and I'm like, I wonder if I can keep it, and like just pay cash for it, because I was like so excited because it had his autograph on it, and
Yeah.
the store manager's like, dude, no, you can't. And I'm like, what if I just give you cash for it in return? And they're
Yeah.
like, no. It's just super
It's
funny.
amazing. It's amazing to see, like, you look at Penn State wrestling now, and they're a powerhouse,
Yeah,
and it's directly correlated to the leadership that Cale and his teams brought. But Cale, right? He brought back Penn State wrestling culture to a level where, it is, if not the most respected program in the world.
yeah.
And, he's got some amazing athletes that are very, just very respected and respectful, which is a really important thing in sports. And it's just amazing.
So as you get to know me a little bit, I bantered with him, and I'm like, I bet you can't get me. And he started laughing, and he's just like, okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, I wrestled for a little bit in high school until I had my complete body and spirit and soul smashed by a guy named DJ Pronto. He was like 3.5 times my body weight at the time, and he picked me up. Coach Caputo told Pronto to go up against me in like freestyle at wrestling practice, and he destroyed me. And he smashed me on the mat, and like it was the metaphorical cartoon thing, and it like destroyed my body, soul, and spirit.
Yeah.
And that was the end of wrestling for me because there was nothing left.
Yeah, wrestling has that impact on a lot of people, you know?
Yeah, it hurt in ways I didn't know your body could hurt. So I tried it. Anyway, that's a fun story. So anyway, thanks for that warm up. That's a good story. Wrestling is really cool. I got a neighbor kid down the street. He is just crushing it. He comes from a family that is wrestlers, and he is just a stud.
Yeah.
And it's fun to see him grow and go through it, and like the discipline it gets. But anyway, I digress. So we're going to talk a little bit about leadership, Jimmy. And that's what this platform is all about, is taking leadership lessons and paying it forward and giving people a chance to hear it. So I got a couple of questions for you about leadership, if you don't mind.
Yeah, that sounds great.
So first off, thank you for your service to this nation.
It's my honor. It really is. Like, I don't know what to say when people say that, because I'm actually like, I love this. I love this country. I love serving this country. I love what I do. It's fun. I'm around great people. It's like, it's one of those things where someone's like, hey, thanks for your service. And you're like, thank you. Or
Yeah.
like, it's my, like, what do you say? It's really awkward, but thank you for your service.
You're welcome. I mean, I get it, but I just want to make sure that on behalf of all the listeners, we get a chance to say thank you.
Thanks,
And
bud.
that's one of my favorite parts of this whole show. So as we talk about your background in you being in the Marine Corps, your leadership, how did that transform and shape your leadership style for you at GORUCK? And can you give some examples of where your military tactics help
Hmm.
solve your problems at the company you're at today?
Right. Yeah, I mean that's a really big question, because there's so many leadership things that come from my experiences as an infantry officer, right? And especially like during time of war and
Mm-hmm.
in actual combat scenarios, right? So I think I think for me personally, taking those experiences and taking them to the business world is they've been really valuable in the sense that, you know, I've just told someone this yesterday on a conference call and on a one-on-one check-in, right? I told them yesterday because we have so many great things going on at GoRuck, and it's like the opportunities are somewhat endless, right? And it takes a lot of focus to stay on task and on priorities and everything. And great employee. In fact, all of the employees at GoRuck are fantastic, amazing culture. But she is somewhat task saturated, and so much so because she's so talented. But I told her, I was like, look, no one's gonna die. Like these, yes, we have priorities, and yes, we have these things that we need to do, but no one's gonna die here, right? Like let's take a step back, take a deep breath, like let's hit the pause button and orient on what we need to do, what decisions need to be made, and then take action on those, right? And I tell you all that to say is that a lot of the experiences I have, as a young lieutenant infantry guy and being around other young meat eater Marines, infantry Marines, a lot of those things is like the leader has the ability to, um, I guess, lower the level of all of the chaos. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and that that is something I've taken back and saying and orienting the team on what actually needs to get done in a way where there's total chaos and you take a step back and you say, listen, I want you to do this. I need you to do that. I need you to like let's all take a deep breath and realize this is what we're trying to get accomplished and then go. And any infantry officers or anybody that has been in those kind of situations know that the most cool, calm, and collected people are the ones that have the ability to see and orient the teams on what actually needs to get done. And whether that's in a troops in contact or that's on a marketing campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that resonates with you or anybody else, but that's something that I've been able to say like things could be worse. Let's relax and let's orient and then let's take some action.
Yeah, that like a bad day in the office is not anywhere compared to a bad day that is in a war zone, right? Like
Right.
you don't have somebody lobbing a mortar at you, or and
Right.
it's put it into context. Take a deep breath, slow down, and check it. Like I even have to do that sometimes, right? Like you let that emotion build up, and like that everyone has it, that emotional reaction to something, and
Sure.
you're like, okay, context, right?
That's
And
right.
put it,
Yeah.
and you got to check it,
Well, I mean,
and
you could look at like I like to look at things in life as just like, yeah, I've done what I've done. I do what I do, right? But you can look at things and orient yourself on, it could always, I do this, it could always be worse. The stakes could be much higher. The
mm-hmm,
price could be much more expensive, right? And we look at some of these things in business or in life or just relationships. And if you're able to just go, you know what, like things could be so much worse. I could not have a roof over my head. I could not have this relationship, that I have with this person. I could not, like people could be knocking on my door to come steal my family. And these are real. real things. And to
Yes.
be able to take a step back and go, I live in a very safe nation. I have a roof over my head. I have relationships. I can put food on my table. Like, it really puts you things into perspective you know, on what the current scenario, situation, dilemma might be. And
Yeah.
that's a hard thing to do for all of us, myself included, But when I do have those moments, it's like just things diffuse so quickly.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And it's really that's really good advice is to put it into context. Like, is everyone okay? Like,
Yeah.
go through that checklist. Like, are we doing triage? Like, is someone physically hurt? No. Good.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Like, start there, and go through it. So, I had a situation a week or two ago where I came in and I was on a hot path. We all have them,
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
and my poor leader that I came in on the hot path was like, "Ooh," and I'm like, "I know I'm on a hot path, but I'm on a hot path, and I gotta tell you I'm on a hot path." And
Right.
he's like, "Okay." I'm like, "Pressure valve's coming. I need it for a minute." And he's like, "All right." And he let me have my moment, and then we talked through it, and then I'm like, "I'm good." And he's like, "Just like that," and I'm like, "Yep."
Yeah.
We all got to have those moments, right? But in the right environment.
Sure. Sure. And like bringing this back to the leadership context, like I can do that internally. I can do that for myself. A good leader, and I've seen them a lot, a good leader has the ability to do that, not just verbally, but just like it just happens because people can see the composure. They can see they can they can feel someone's proficiency. They can feel the calmness, and like I tell you that it's funny. I've been through Europe, and like I saw this sign once in Christiania, and it's like it's funny because I laugh at it, and I laugh with a couple of my friends with it. But there's really only, I think there's three rules in Christiania, and it's like this kind of embassy of I don't need to go down it, but there are three rules, and you walk in, and there it is. These are the three rules, and the first rule is there's no running. Running causes panic. And you start thinking about it, you're like, oh my gosh, this is funny. First rule is running causes panic. But if you really think about that, it's like, well, running does cause panic. Because if you're on the streets and people start running around, like, you know, people, they'll start to panic. And,
Yeah.
and if they see a leader panicking, well, that turns into a lot of panic. But leaders have the ability to be like, hey, it's John Boyd's OODA loop, right? Observe, orient, decide, act. Like,
OODA
got
loop.
OODA loop, and I'm a huge OODA loop, kind of person. And my team at GORUCK, they're so tired of hearing about the OODA loop, and I can see them on conference calls, like, and I could see them typing and stuff too. They're probably on Slack talking trash on me, or just like, here we go again, right? But like OODA loop, it's like observe, orient on,
Orient.
decide, and act. And like my job, like at GoRuck, is to get us good at our OODA loop, and then make it faster and make it better. Um, and so if I can, as a leader, diffuse things, observe, get everyone to observe what's going on, we orient on what is actually happening, we make
Yeah.
some decisions, and we go do it. And if we can do that in a calm, but this is funny, a calm but aggressive manner, then like we're winning. And I'll tell you, over at GoRuck, we're winning. And it's not because of me. It's because the team's doing those things. And I'm really pumped about it. Really pumped.
Man, that's awesome. What was the second rule?
It was no photography. And so Christiania is, it's it's like it's walled up. People kind of live in there. You got a really hippie culture and everything, and there's not a lot of rules, but because of it, it's very peaceful and everything. And so you have a lot of just people that do a bunch of drugs and things like that. Now, we had heard that it was somewhat of a monument, I guess, or a place where you would definitely want to go, tourist kind of thing. And we did. We went in, and it was like, the place is wild. And but I always joke with my friends about it. But that running causes panic thing, it's just
True.
a trip. It's just a trip. But like you really think about it, I'm just like, damn, it actually does cause panic.
Man, when I worked on the flight line on the F-16s, if you saw somebody running,
Yeah,
you ran because that meant something really bad happened. It's
right,
like someone dropped a bomb, like a plane's on like you just run.
right,
Like
right.
you make sure you beat them
That's right.
because you don't run on the flight line.
That's right. Yeah.
That's awesome. I got another question for you.
Okay.
So you've been at Ruck for a little bit. You were chief marketing officer for a while, which, by the way, I love. I'm in marketing. So my entire professional career has been in marketing. So it's fun to be able to talk to a CMO
Yeah.
that's gone to the president suite. How were you able to handle that transition and keep the company running smoothly? So talk to me a little. I've never been able to ask somebody this question, so I'm really intrigued
Yeah.
about that.
That's a tough, like another tough one though, Zach. I mean, personally, like I I feel like I've personally handled it pretty well. I can't speak for the company or my team, if that makes any
Yeah.
sense. Because I'd had a couple roles at GORUCK. We started flirting around for a little bit, and I did a consulting contract. I was on the board of advisors and did some consulting, and then more consulting, and then a big consulting, and then it was like full time, and which was a great way to do it, if you ask me, because I got to know who's who in the zoo. Fell in love with the founder and the people, and they got to know me, and I got to really get some reps on the things that we were doing, or change some things and get some reps on that, flex muscles we haven't flexed, or work some new ones. But I feel like it's been a good transition for me. I can't speak for my team, right? And I say all that to say is like, we at GoRuck are very non-traditional. Like if you, we would look nothing like another big apparel brand, and I think that's what makes us special in a way, that because it's not a typical organizational chart, right? It's not like a big tree, and it's not flat like a lot of people, talk about flat organization, but it is in a way, right? And it's so my shift over from, I guess, being called the CMO and the growth officer to president had kind of, in a way, our founder and CEO Jason McCarthy, like he's a military guy himself, a special forces guy,
Yep.
10 special forces group, very very founder like, very intense, very hold the standard, but also very like find a way or make one. And him and I are very similar in a lot of ways. And then we complement each other in different ways. But he is very much of the sense of like, okay, organizational chart, it has a purpose, and organization and those kinds of things have purpose, right? But like reward success with resources, which is a great business principle, and that's what we do at GoRuck. And we form teams around, like we know where our blind spots are, and we know what we're good at, and we know what we're not, both individually, department wise, and also like for our teams, right? And what we've done, what Jason and our team has done, is like rewarded the president's kind of role with a lot of offense, because that's what I'm very good at. At least that's what I feel like is more my superpower is our offense and being forward and driving, the team towards objectives. And we've rewarded the president's role at GORUCK with that and put resources around it. And so I've, I personally, by my leader, Jason, have been set up for success because he's recognized what I'm good at. And so like I'm able to do that with the teams that I'm overseeing at GoRuck. And that's a really important thing, right? Because trying to I do know that there are structures and and especially on the military side where it's like this is your role, this is what you're responsible for. That's what the operations officer does. That's what the executive officer does.
Hmm.
That is what a platoon commander does. That's not what you do. That's what the first sergeant does.
Yep.
And like that's important because you have a lot of turnover. You
Hmm.
have a very big organization. A lot of these roles and responsibilities have been written in blood, and but when you have a small team of 50, 55 people at GoRuck trying to change the world through rucking, change lives through rucking. That's what we say internally. We are going to change lives through rucking. And that's our wake up in the morning. And if we're not changing lives through rucking, we probably shouldn't be doing it. And that's what we do. And we're able to be nimble and be able to be like, you know what? Like, I'm not actually really good at that. She's really good at that. Let's make her responsible for that and give him some of that. Right. And, rewarding your teams and who's good at what and giving people, um, pointing their superpowers where their superpowers can be most effective, that's a really good thing. And so, again, I don't know if I've answered your question, but I do think that I've been set up for success by my team and
I,
by my leader there.
I think you nailed it. And a couple things that I take away with it that really resonate with me. You use the word superpower, and I love that because one of my superpowers, I think, in life is bringing people together and getting them to achieve the impossible.
Yeah.
And I tell people this all the time. My kids are sick of hearing it, but like with my coffee company, for me, it's like I'm trying to create a movement, kind of what you're doing, right? Like my coffee company to me is all about a movement of being a beacon of hope for people, of
Hmm.
bringing communities together for veterans to collaborate, and all around coffee. Like that's it. It's there's nothing like my company was created to generate money to give back to veterans. That's it. Nothing
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
And
That's awesome.
and and so when you say like nimble and aligning people with their strengths and like let them go do that, like I love it. And like it's almost like this boundless weaving of people through the
Hmm.
ecosystem without without malicious agendas.
Hmm.
Like I think that's
Yeah.
that's the beauty of what I heard you just say, because it's a common objective without hidden agendas.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I've ever like been able to verbalize this, but I'll tell you like to me leadership is a people business, and this has probably been said before, but this is how I feel about it. Like it's a people business. And it means, rewarding people for their successes, helping them, when they, dust themselves off when they've had some failures, make people want to be around each other and be around you, and like this was something that I've had some leaders over the years, and I've said this publicly in the past, but this is important for any leader or even follower, right? Because in the younger ranks of the military, and especially near the academies and near, I mean, you go through the basic school in the Marine Corps, you go through OCS. I mean, everything is intended to. You got to know how to be a good follower to be a good leader. You have to know how to be a good follower to be a good leader. And why? Because you need to be able to go, and this is how I did it. and I continue to always do this at 44 years old. It's like, I really like that. I like how he does that. I love how she did that. I love, like, that is amazing. That technique or the way he treated that person or whatever that looks like. I take chips off of people's blocks, or take that arrow and put it in my quiver. And I go, you know what? That was not, I would never do that. And I throw that to the side. And I build my leadership quiver via other people. And so my goal to my young Marines and to the kids I coach on a wrestling mat, or to other people that I just have impact on or like have any interaction with, is that they just go like, oh yeah, I really like how he did that, right? And I'm not doing it for that reason, but I'm taking those things out of my quiver and I'm applying them to being a leader to other people. And that's important to me because it's a people business. And what I always tried to do, and I did this through being genuine and giving loyalty down, because these are terms that other leaders have heard, especially those who've been, in the ranks and file. But like loyalty down, will command loyalty up, right? Like just because you're wearing shiny things on your collar doesn't mean your boys respect you. You gotta love them. You have to take care of them. You have
Yep.
to you have to engage their superpowers. You have to sleep in the mud with them.
Yeah.
And you have to be cold with them and tired and hungry, and you have to carry the load with and sometimes for them. And I have had the privilege of experiencing that with some of my Marines, and I've loved them for it. And it's turned out that like they don't see the shiny on my collars as much as they normally would, but they respect when I say this is how it's going to go. And it's not because of the shine on my collars. It's because we've built a mutual respect and I've been loyal to them and they will be loyal to me. And that's just the nature of things. That's the people business. Take care of your people on the battlefield, in your home, in your relationships, and in your business. Take care of your people. They will take care of you.
Yep. You're 100% right. I love everything you just said, man. And I got like, I'm ready to like go ruck a mountain with you right now, and
Yeah.
let's go.
Let's
And
do it.
I love it. I can't believe you're only 2 years older than me. That's another story, but
You saying I'm old? I look old?
no, I'm saying you look awesome.
Thanks, brother.
So, next question: overcoming some challenges. Like we're gonna go ruck over this mountain over here, but
Yeah.
give me an example that we can talk through real quick of overcoming challenges you faced at GORUCK that the military helped you prepare for. Let's just pick one, and that way we can give some context for some of the viewers.
Yeah.
One that comes to mind.
Okay. I mean, like, there's a lot, and I guess
Yeah.
it's probably not necessarily an example like that I can go on this day at this time or
Yeah.
whatever. I'll tell you this is a continual thing. And most businesses, it's probably going to be the same. Most companies too, is, you know, military is very, very, communication is probably the most important thing in all of the military. And I mean, it's I guess one of those things where it's probably arguable. Someone could say bullets and missiles and like navigation or whatever. Like there's so many things, but I'll tell you that you can take all of that stuff to the line of departure, and if you have no communication between who's on your left and who's on your right and who's above you and behind you, then you have nothing. In fact, you have a really, really dangerous situation. And so I'll tell you that like communication is a very constant point of friction for the military, but for us at GORUCK and any company for that matter, there are so many things going on, and there are so many different lines of business and verticals and projects and campaigns and deadlines and products that need to get out the door. And I don't necessarily mean products like we get a new GR1 in Ranger Green, it needs to go up. That does have to happen. But I'm talking about the products of media and relationships and partnerships and the whole kit and caboodle, right? And communication is a difficult thing. I try to sit back as somewhat of a quarterback in a way. And this has been a very difficult thing for me because I've always been liking to be the one that's in it and doing it and kind of kicking in the door and being like, you in here. But now as the president, I think my team's starting to feel some of the friction too, because I'm trying to take a stand back a little bit and be like, you need to talk to him, and are you talking to her about that because she's doing this kind of thing? And that is something that like I am growing on, with a company where that my team goes into the office every day. I've had the privilege of working virtually for GORUCK for a long time since I actually started doing things with GORUCK. And I still live in the mountains in Utah. I fly out there once a month for a week and I spend time with the team. I sit at this desk a lot on these conference calls, and and I try to quarterback a little bit, and I feel like it actually to some extent gives me a little bit of objective kind of view to some of the things that we're doing. But because I spend so much time on planes and going and hunting and bringing meat back to the table, like I wouldn't be in the office anyway. But a little bit of a tangent. But I'll tell you that like the friction I sometimes like cause as a leader by not communicating or not making sure these lines of communication are open or lubricated in a way.
Yeah.
That's something that leaders can either be fantastic at and cause a lot less friction, or be not so great at and cause a ton of friction. And there's moments where I feel like I could do better and not cause so much friction, and there's other moments where I feel like the team's super jiving. And and if you take that back to what it looks like from a leadership role on range 410 alpha, or actually downrange, in pick your bad country, like a leader needs to be able to be picking up the phone and making sure that people, if they're dropping things from the air, that it's not dropping on you and on the other bad guy, and making sure that first platoon is making sure second platoon knows that they're going straight and not pointing at each other. Like this is what leaders are supposed to be doing, right? And again, with the analogy of how important it is that does those types of things happen or don't happen on the battlefield, it's very important that this stuff happens in business as well.
I completely agree with you. And some organizations are structured to allow that to be more efficient than others, and some aren't. Like it just depends on how organizations are set up. So I just agree with you. Like communication is key, up, down, left, right, behind, whatever direction you want to think about, and externally to your customers too, right? That constant communication to let them know that you're still relevant, you're still there, you're still connected with them, all of the things. So I love it.
The other thing too, Zach, is like when you talk about communication, I'll tell you that one of the major factors for, at least in my opinion and my experience, is communication's facilitated by good culture. And I see a lot of people, or hear a lot of people throw around the culture word a lot, and it's kind of like, okay, got it, like, but culturally, if you have an open door policy, right? Like, and you can have an open door policy and you can be a prick sitting at the desk while someone walks in the door. That is not a good culture. Like if your people feel like they can pick up the phone and say, "Hey, you're a little messed up," or "This is a little messed up," or "I've got a better idea," or "Why don't we do it this way?" or "That was a total mess. Let's not do that again," kind of thing. Like if people can have respectful, meaningful conversations between each other, they can feel comfortable walking up to the next person's desk and go, "What do you think about this?" Or "Why don't we do it that way?" Like if you're in a culture where it's like, you know, this is how we're going to do it, and if you don't do it, like get off the boat. Like that's not it. And I'll tell you that a lot of some things I've seen in the past are that there is not that culture. People talk about culture, they talk about how this is a great culture and all this stuff, but that's not really the case. Like a culture is great when you walk in and you see a lot of people that are happy and they're talking and they're doing things together and stuff. That is a sign of good culture. But like when someone has the ability to just come in and say, "Hey, why don't we do this," without being told that they're effed up, like that encourages innovation. It encourages excitement. It encourages growth and offense, and it makes people better. And so you need good culture to have great communication lines. And so I guess that's a little bit of a caveat, or what I like to say, a backpack on to what I was talking about.
Yeah, we all got to carry the load, right?
That's right.
I love it. Yeah, that goes into the next question, like working in a space where innovation is critically important to stay relevant.
Hmm.
How do you, like you just said it, open door policy, like really actually make it happen? Can you share, excuse me, an instance where innovative approach made a significant difference to your business?
I mean, it's happening every day at GORUCK.
Cool.
Really is. It's from innovative products to innovative ways to talk about our products, right? Because this is a very interesting thing about rucking at the moment. Okay, rucking. We say we're going to change lives through rucking, and the sub to that, that we talk about internally, is rucking will be bigger than running. Like we will make rucking bigger than running, and we're already starting to see that. And I go into all the bio, mechanics and the kinetics around it. Like I will tell you that every time your foot strikes the ground, when you're running, that's close to, if not more than 9x your body weight on your foot, joint, everything, every strike. You get 200 pounds, that's 1,800 pounds of force going to your
I
joint.
I only weigh a
Right?
buck 90.
But so you got all that, right? But like what you look at is, this is what fascinates me, and this is what I got to experience when I was at CrossFit, is like, we, it's funny. In the beginning at CrossFit, we had shirts that literally CrossFit, smoke you like cheap crack. And it was like, that's what the workouts will do to you, because they were intense. And I've like hadn't felt anything like that since I was wrestling and training for, to be a champion, right? And I felt it and I loved it from the beginning. But when you start looking at the magic of CrossFit, it was like, wow, like my grandmom can do CrossFit. And now she can pick up a milk carton, a full milk carton from the ground. And what that happens, well, now she can hold her grandchild where she might not have been able to do it. And you see all these kind of stories and things that have come from it, right? And it's just like, yeah, this is what the Marines and SEALs and all that guys are doing on the end, to be ready for whatever they need to be ready for. Firefighters, police, name it, whatever, like smoke jumpers. And all the way down the end, this is like, this person just wants to stay healthy or get healthy or bring down their, triglycerides or blood pressure or cholesterol, whatever it looks like. So I say all that to say is like, there's an enormous spectrum here.
Yep.
GoRuck is in a very similar situation at the moment, because rucking is 100% scalable for anybody. You want to get ready for the special forces, you want to climb Kilimanjaro, you want to be just a total meat eater badass. Put on a ruck. We got what you need. Go do it. You know, you'll get through selection. You'll get through buds. You'll get through McCree hikes in the Marine Corps. We've got what you need. You know, we got the rucks, we got the plates, we got the sandbags, we got everything you need to go do it. All the way down here on this end, you want to lose 5 pounds? Go for a walk. You want to make every step count a little bit more? Put on a backpack and put some weight in it. We have that for you.
One step at a time.
One step at a time. Grab a friend. Grab your wife, grab your girlfriend, do your one-on-one check-ins with your team, you know, on a ruck. Get an hour in moving with some weight on your back. And I can talk about the health benefits all day long, and that's not what I'm here to do. But like I'm telling you, they're there. I mean,
Yeah.
you take blood work and all the things that you besides what you're going to feel, besides what how strong you're going to get, how good your entire body's going to start to look or get, you know, look better, all of those things. You take blood work for somebody before they put weight on their back, and they consistently put weight on their back and take blood work another week later, all of the markers go in the right direction, all of them. So I'm not going to talk about that, but I am going to talk about how infinitely scalable rucking is. And so the innovative part for us, back to your question, is how can you tell somebody that we make gear that's good enough for the special forces? Like where they go, you're not Amazon and priming in anything. If it breaks, it's broken. In
Yep.
some cases, that's life threatening or, you know, even worse, right? All the way down here. But we also make gear for, you know what, like you're not ready to go to the gym or you don't want to go to the gym or whatever. We got you here. And we've got gear for the people that want to use rucking as a recovery, or they CrossFitters might want to use rucking to more intensify their workout. We've got it everything in between. You want to be ready for hunting? Great. You want to be ready for ski season? Great. You want to be ready for fill in the blank? We've got it. Put on a ruck, go for a walk. Now, how do we be innovative? How do you tell that story? That's where our innovation comes in. And that's one of those things that kind of at least puts me in some sort of a like I balk sometimes. It's like there's so much.
I
There's
love
so
it.
much. Like you balk and you're like, okay, let's just talk about this person and how do they do it? And that's where I think the innovation is because everything else is so elemental and we make the greatest product on earth. It's like that part's taken care of.
God, I love. You know what, man? You are fantastic. Your passion just like is ridiculous. I see it.
Thank you,
It
brother.
and man, I know why that you're leading that company.
Thank you.
Like you can't fake what you just said, what you just did, and what you just told.
Thanks, brother. I am passionate about it. I'm passionate about the people I work with. You know, that's what gets me excited every day. I wake up and I work with great people, doing great things.
That's phenomenal. Like that's that infectious energy is what I call that right there. That's what gets me excited about the things that I'm doing, about this platform, about talking to conversations like with Jimmy's of the world because you know, selfishly, I'm just gonna say it. Like, I feel selfish about this a little bit because, man, I get to meet cool guys like you, and I get to have front row view of what I call master classes on leadership.
Thank you.
And the best part about this, you know, and then we'll go into the last question is, I get to level up my own leadership skills by spending time with guys like you and hearing from you and learning from you. At the same time, we're passing it on and giving a chance for others to hear this because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about for me is how do you pay it forward? That's my mission in life is how do we pay it forward to the ones that come next?
Yeah, yeah. That's could you couldn't put it any better. And the timing for this couldn't be any more important. You know, without going down a rabbit hole there, this is extremely important. Extremely important.
I'm super passionate about it for a multitude of reasons. I don't know that I have it in me to go into it right now, but maybe we can talk about that at a different time. But
I'd love to come back and do that.
I have I'm on a personal mission to like do all of these things. So I want to talk to you about the last question.
Okay.
I think one of the greatest things that a leader can do is develop who's next, right? Because at the end of the day, bench strength is one of the most important things.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me a little bit, and like the team that, or the people that are going to listen to this, about maybe your philosophies or your approaches or your styles of how you've approached or helped grow somebody to be an effective leader?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the easiest way to say that is like just ask questions, right? And what I mean by that is, you know, there's a lot of great things and people that we serve with and people that we work with and everything. And, you know, if you don't build that great culture and you don't build that environment where people feel comfortable, making mistakes, or people feel comfortable with coming up with ideas or being innovative or whatever, they don't have that ability to grow. And that's a problem. That's a really big problem. There's some, I recognized this at one point in my career, and I've never heard it, but actually, it's something that I try to strive to, I guess, avoid. I've come across some scenarios where I have, and I've seen others have an extreme amount of responsibility, but zero authority. And that's a really dangerous place to be in a career, in serving, or like in relationships. It's kind of like you're responsible for all these things, but you actually cannot affect it. It's one of those things where you don't have the ability to make a decision and affect the outcomes. And that's a scary place, right? So responsibility without authority is a really bad thing. I say that to say, back to the question and back to my answer of asking questions, is like, you know, if you have a good culture and you've cultivated this good culture, you just can able to go like, Zach, what do you think we should do? You know, what do you think we should do? And then give them the authority to do it. And if a good leader can and should and may or may not, depending on what the scenario is, give some rudder steers and be like, hey, do you think it'd be better if you did it this way? Or, hey, did you talk to so and so about this? To give these people the ability to like stretch their legs, spread their wings a little bit, run a project, you know, own something that's a good idea, and then reward them for it in front of everybody, praise in public, reprimand in private. Like, show people that, you know, give them the accolades that they deserve. And so ask them the questions that give them, rather than them asking, is it okay if I do this? You're like, when do you think we should do that? Who would we work with on that? And give people the opportunities to shine, and I think that right there they feel like they're growing. They are growing. And it's not just a technique to, you know, come off and not do anything, but it's more of being able to step back as a leader, give an end state and your intent, right? Because I'm extremely big on those things, and that's the other thing that my team probably rolls their eyes at, but it's something I think any team would appreciate, is like, what does success look like at the end of the day? If I'm not here and the whole thing goes sideways, this is the end state and this is what it's going to look like. And here are the lines of efforts we need to actually see to be done so that we accomplish that end state. And absent of me, people can succeed, right?
Yeah.
And if those lines of efforts have leaders in a good culture that are able to have authority over what they want to affect, that's a really good thing.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Man, like your leadership philosophies and how I view it, I can't tell you how much I'm aligned with how you think and what you're saying. It's really refreshing for me to hear that, and I just want to say thanks. It asking more questions and leading through questions. What I think. So here's my perspective on that question. Just real quickly is when as a leader, I view from what I've heard and what I've learned and my experiences come down to. I think developing the next leader comes down to teaching people how to think, and I
Right.
think that's exactly what you're saying by asking the whys.
Yeah.
Instead of giving them the formula to get to an answer and just having people follow a process, you're engaging them to critically think.
Yeah, I mean it's our parenthood technique as well.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
it's like
exactly it.
it's you don't want to solve everything for your kids. You don't. You want to go, you know, it's like, hey dad, can, you know, like what do I do here? And it's like, what do you think you should do? Well, should I do? And I'm like, what do you think? And as long as they're not going to hurt themselves or other people, you gotta let them go. You gotta let them do it. Let them try. Trial and error. You know, like I'm not gonna, hey, let me get up and go do this for you. That's not how we do things. That's not how you make capable, you know, young contributing members of society. Not in my mind. You know, and you gotta let them fall a couple times, right? And yeah, I'm talking about adults and I'm talking about professionals, but it's very similar, right?
Yeah,
And if you're always holding people's hands and you're not giving them, you know, you're not always the one, you know, like leading the calls, and you're giving your inputs and letting people, you know, ascertain what you're trying to accomplish, or more importantly, be absent from calls because you've already given them the intent and end state and do regular check-ins, then like your team feels empowered. They are going to be, yes, there's going to be failures, and there's going to be failures if you're the one that's actually in there driving it. That happens. It happens in every aspect of life: military, family, social, business. Doesn't matter. Those will happen. You know, the beautiful, like, I guess the most important thing is how much of a failure is it? You know, that's there are, how much can you mitigate the damages, I guess, is the best way to put that, right? But
yeah,
like the best thing is allowing them to run with it and giving them the tools that they need to succeed. And at the ends of my one-on-ones, I always go, do you need anything from me? This is what I ask. Do you need anything from me? Am I holding anything up? Is there anything more that I can give you so you can be successful? That's that's my job, right? Like, what resources do you need from me? What information do you need? What guidance did I not give you so that you can be successful? So that throughout the rest of the week or 2 weeks where I'm not seeing them, they are moving towards our company's end state.
I love it. Yeah, and I is it I'm going to go on a limb here, and it's rare based on how you're plugged into your team that they tell you they need something different.
Sometimes though, I mean,
Some
sometimes, I mean, I generally, like, I am back to how we're organized. A lot of times I'm out hunting, you know, and I
growing the
have,
business.
yeah, short check-ins with people, and I am not good. This is one of my blind spots. I am not great at doubling back and taking notes of all the things I have going. I pick up the phone a lot and make calls. And I tell my kids this. I'm like, well, they're like, well, they, you know, I shot them a text and they haven't responded. I'm like, well, pick up the phone. That's what it's for. And they're like, well, we don't do that. And anyway, just a side joke, but I'm out and I'm going and I come back and I'm like, hey, this is what's going to go, and I think this, that, and the other thing. But what I don't do is give this, what we know we refer to inside of our company as a single source of truth. I am not a great contributor of that, you know. So there are some times where they're like, hey, you know, what about this? However, like I don't waver in what I'm looking for, and that's really, I think that's what keeps us kind of moving forward.
I'm chuckling because hi pot, I'm kettle.
Yes, right.
I love it. Hey, thanks for the chat. I absolutely have loved this. I know that the people that are gonna watch this are gonna they're gonna sit and just be like, man, this was a level up for them from a conversation perspective. But this leads me to my absolute favorite part of my
Uh,
podcast.
okay.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
What can the people that watch this do for you? What can this network do to support you? How can we, what's the call to action that we can do to support you and your organization and Jimmy?
Me personally, get engaged with your communities. That's really it, right? Like we are a product company, but we're built on community, and that's again one of those words that you throw around that gets thrown around a lot is community, but it's like go grab your neighbor, go for a walk, go check in with people. Veterans need to be picking up the phone to other veterans and say, "How you doing, brother?" That's it. Not like, "Hey, are you mentally okay? This is a mental check." No, it's just people with communities around them thrive, and they do very well. And so, and take that and run with it, coach a little league team, go out, start a service project in your neighborhood, get engaged with the Travis Manion Foundation, and teach youth about character. Like these are the things that really get me excited. And that's where you're going to be helping me and GORUCK, because we if the listeners haven't recognized this yet, and I think they're already going to, because the type of listener you're going to attract, like we are in a somewhat of a crisis at the moment, right? And not talking politics, I'm not talking any of that things, but I was just talking with my son about this last night. Um, and it's a really weird thing to say, because I didn't walk uphill, both ways in the snow to high school, right? But I will tell you that, like, with our youth grew up different. They're growing up differently than we did. Like,
Absolutely.
I mean, I grew up in South Jersey, and like you say something wrong, you get punched in the teeth, and you move on, kind of thing. And nowadays, it's like it's camera phones and all this stuff. Like, there's not accountability. You can bag on people on multiple platforms, and mental health is at an all-time high because we sit in front of these devices doing all these things. Like, we need to the leadership of these companies and communities, and of families and fathers and all and mothers, we need to encourage communal aspects and doing the right thing and character, and that communities take accountability for character and the development of character. And so that's what would get me pumped up.
Yeah. You say that we grew up different. I completely agree with you. Like, I got on a bike as a kid and just went. And it was like be home by like dinner time's about this time, and I had like just a basic watch, no cell phone. My parents went to work, and I like just be home at this time. It was different. Like literally last night, as we're recording this, last night, my daughter's Instagram account got hacked. And that's something that you and I never had to deal with.
Yeah.
And the emotional drama that brought to our family last night.
Yeah.
And that's real stuff.
It's real stuff, and it's like the environment that we are all currently living in is different. I mean, I could do 7 podcasts for an hour each, and I could give you story after story after story.
Yep.
But I'll tell you, it's like, hey, Mrs. Brisky calling my parents at my home on my home telephone, going, "Did you know Jimmy? Several neighborhoods down. Did you know Jimmy was on roller skates hanging on to a UPS truck?" And it's kind of like, like, or like, if I knew one of my teachers called home to my house, like I would, when my dad got home from work, because we were latchkey kids, like it was like, I'm getting a butt whooping I mean, no questions asked. No.
Truth. That's
Nowadays, but like think about it. What parents would actually take the effort to go find where those kids live and tell them that you know your kids are doing this? Or like there's a whole thing where like I've seen this in action, not in my house for damn sure, but I've seen it in action where parents get a call from a school and it turns out that they go after the teachers and the administration because Johnny or Susie, not my Johnny or Susie, why would you even do that? Like, kind of thing. And they go at the administration, where instead of like going, like, hey, there's something that warranted this call, you know? Like, and anyway,
Man,
it's just,
I agree with you. It's different times, man.
yeah,
And this is why we need local, we need people to show up locally in our communities, as you said, to bring leadership, fight for our children, fight for bringing that nucleus of the family back, and show up and represent.
that's right.
That's what I agree, and help carry the load.
That's right. That's
And
right.
man, I feel blessed to have you and to be a part of your network now. And I
You
just want
sure
to say
are.
thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. This has been exciting. I've had a lot of fun. I've got to voice some things that I just go and spin in my head that I don't get it. Like, you know, I'm not gonna lie. My bride and I, we have a great relationship, but when I start talking about this stuff, she's like, so and it's one of those, yeah, it's one of those things where it's like you just don't. I personally, like, this is just something that is inside of me, and you've given me a nice outlet for me to get it out, and it feels good. So thank you.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you, Jimmy. I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate the mission that you and your company are on, and I appreciate what you bring every day. The passion and the grit and just the go get it, the hustle, right? And good on you. And so everybody, that's a wrap for this episode of Leaders Lead. I want to especially thank Jimmy for showing up and imparting his wisdom to the community. And so my ask and my call to action is go follow Jimmy, go follow GORUCK, connect, get out in the community. If you're so inclined, go grab some gear, go grab your neighbor and go get after it. And let's go help carry the load and bring some good back to everything. Thanks everybody, and have a good day. Cheers.